In an intricate agreement unveiled, major OPEC Plus members will start reducing their voluntary production cutbacks in October. This agreement also extends the majority of other current quotas until the end of 2025, allowing the alliance to begin regaining market share without driving up oil prices. Sign up right away. Following the meeting of OPEC Plus ministers, the group announced that Saudi Arabia and 7 other countries had made voluntary cuts totaling about 2.2 million barrels of oil per day. Originally scheduled to end after June, the cuts will now be maintained through September and then progressively reduced by roughly 180,000 barrels per month through September 2025. A different set of output reductions, amounting to about 3.7 million barrels per day, which had been gradually implemented since October 2022, will remain in effect until the end of 2025, 1 year beyond their planned expiration at the end of 2024. The UAE, however, has been granted a quota increase of 300,000 barrels per day, which will be gradually implemented starting in January. The goal of the intricate layers of cuts is to support declining crude prices, which are lower than what many OPEC Plus members require in order to balance their budgets. The US, Canada, Brazil, Guyana, and other competing producers have all increased their supply, and this has put pressure on the market combined with persistently high inflation in major consuming nations and inconsistent economic indicators. Head of Crude Oil Analysis at Sant Global Commodity Insights Jim Borchardt stated, "The announcement by itself is unlikely to impact prices, as the extension of the cut was expected. However, the extension increases the odds of crude oil inventories declining over the summer months, which could lift prices for time." Dated Brent was valued at $80 on July 21, which is less than $10 from the recent highs in mid-April and below a level that permits many OPEC Plus producers to balance their budgets. Saudi Energy Minister Prince Abdulaziz bin Salman told reporters during a video briefing, "We are waiting for interest rates to come down, a better trajectory of economic growth, not just in some pockets here and there, but also more certainty on the economic trajectory, and that will probably cause demand to increase." The decision was made when it was anticipated that, although market observers were split on the growth range, global oil consumption would increase following the US summer driving season. According to OPEC's most recent estimate, global demand will rise by 2.2 million barrels per day in 2024. Comparing this to estimates of 1.7 million barrels per day from Commodity Insights and 1.1 million barrels per day from the International Energy Agency, the difference is substantial. Regarding the predictions, Prince Abdulaziz declared, "The jury is still out." When it comes to demand, OPEC is presumably taking a more optimistic stance, although other people have quite negative opinions as well. However, we have no idea how these things will turn out. We want to go carefully and methodically because of this. In the short term, he stated, costs for gasoline and diesel, a significant topic of discussion for lawmakers up for election, are not a source of worry for anybody. Commodity Insights stated in a note that the move is net neutral for prices, contrary to what many experts had predicted would happen, an extension of the voluntary reduction. But prices are likely to rise once seasonal demand takes off and inventories decline, it stated. Non-OPEC Plus supply remains a downside risk, as does growing OPEC Plus spare capacity. While the remainder of the OPEC Plus alliance participated virtually, ministers from the group making the voluntary cuts, which include Saudi Arabia, Russia, Iraq, the UAE, Kuwait, Kazakhstan, Algeria, and Oman, met in person in Riyadh. The face-to-face meeting facilitated the negotiation of the UAE's 2025 quota rise and the schedule of voluntary cutbacks. Iran and Libya, 2 quota-exempt nations, as well as African members that are producing less than expected, were not invited. After months of overproduction and long-standing demands for a higher production baseline, the United Arab Emirates, UAE, saw an increase in its quota of 300,000 barrels per day. This increase will take effect over the first 9 months of 2025. Starting in 2025, the Gulf state will have a basic quota of 3.519 million barrels per day, exclusive of any voluntary reductions it may make. Suhail al-Mazrouei, the energy minister, told reporters in Riyadh that he was satisfied with the increase in its quota, but he would not go into detail about how it was decided. Apart from its voluntary drop, Russia also seemed to receive a tiny increase in its quota, from 9.828 million barrels per day for 2024 to 9.949 million barrels per day for 2025. According to Commodity Insights Platts OPEC Plus study, some of the group in Riyadh are among the largest offenders of OPEC Plus compliance, including Russia, 200,000 barrels per day over quota in April, Iraq, 240,000 barrels per day, and Kazakhstan, 72,000 barrels per day. The alliance stated that by the end of June, the three nations must submit plans to make up for their extra output in 2024. In order to affect 2026 production quotas, secondary suppliers will need to submit capacity estimates by November, while OPEC Plus has decided to postpone a baseline review until 2025. Following severe quota reduction brought about by the 2023 baseline review, which focused on underproducing African countries, Angola withdrew from the group after 19 years of membership. The next ministerial meeting will take place on December 1st, as agreed upon by the group. Vienna usually has in-person meetings, but for the second time in a row, one was conducted online on June 2nd. Following the meeting, Iranian Oil Minister Blvd stated, according to the ministry's press agency Shana, that the oil market is currently going through a crucial time. Global oil supply and demand are seriously contested on both sides, which could have negative effects on future prospects for developments. This is based on published reports and analysis. Concurrently, the escalation in the actions of paper traders has additionally contributed to the concerns, according to OG. Concurrent with the OPEC Plus gathering, Saudi Arabia initiated the eagerly awaited secondary share offering of its state-owned energy behemoth, Saudi Aramco. The aim is to collect approximately $12 billion to support the kingdom's endeavors towards economic diversification. Although falling oil prices and the OPEC Plus cuts have hurt Saudi Arabia's budget recently, Aramco has been the country's main source of funding. With its commitment to limit its output to 9 million barrels per day, well below its capacity and at levels not seen since the height of the coronavirus pandemic, Saudi Arabia, the largest petroleum exporter in the world, has taken the brunt of the OPEC Plus cuts. According to the monthly Reuters survey released on Tuesday, OPEC's crude oil production increased by 145,000 barrels per day, BPD, in May over April as Iraq continued to exceed its quota and increased output alongside African producer Nigeria. Based on information from industry sources and shipping statistics, the Reuters survey tracks supply to the market and shows that OPEC produced a total of 26.63 million BPD in May, up 145,000 BPD from April. Iraq, the second largest producer of oil in OPEC after Saudi Arabia, has been regularly pumping more oil than its OPEC Plus allotment and has also routinely stated that it will make up for the excess output. Plans to guarantee full reimbursement of overproduced quantities by the end of the year were brought to OPEC last month by Kazakhstan, a non-OPEC producer, and Iraq. Furthermore, any extra production in April 2024 will be accommodated for the balance of the year within the corresponding compensation frameworks. According to the Reuters survey, Iraq increased its production by almost 50,000 BPD last month, in defiance of the commitments made in early May. In an effort to increase output following years of underperformance in the OPEC Plus agreement, which resulted in the OPEC Plus group reducing its quota at the end of last year, Nigeria also increased its output by 50,000 barrels per day. According to a Reuters survey, the 9 OPEC nations who are bound by the OPEC Plus agreement collectively produced almost 250,000 BPD more than their combined indicated target in the deal. A significant portion of OPEC's excess production beyond the indicated quota was due to Iraq. The market was largely disappointed by OPEC's decisions this weekend, and some market participants are worried about slowing economies that could affect global oil demand. As a result, the observed increase in OPEC's oil production isn't helping to foster any bullish sentiment at all.